Employees of Build-A-Bear. What is the weirdest thing a customer has requested? A native family wanted to put a real bear tooth inside the bear. It was for a newborn. I made sure to check the sharpness of the tooth so it wouldn't puncture the fabric. Nothing weird with that job though. Although, there was a time when this old, drunk guy walked by the store and tried to grab a little girl near the entrance. A father intervened and got her back, but people were more bewildered by this guy doing it so obviously rather than get upset. I hated the store's music though, kids singing hit songs. I hated the chipper face/voice we had to put on, and I hated handling the fluff when refilling it. Edit. Who else remembers the Happy Beer Days song? My God. Not weird, but heartbreaking. Had an older woman come in and request 5 bears, each with a personalized voice box. She was in late stages of cancer and was getting a bear for each of her grandkids, with a different message to each one to remember her by. Potentially heartbreaking, ultimately awkward, and traumatizing for those involved. A co-worker used to work in a different store, and one day a person came in, picked a bear, and sort of faffed about a while before taking it to be stuffed. Co-worker puts bear on the machine, hits the pedal, and is covered in a cloud of dust, along with the guest, and the store. Turns out the person had poured their late partner's cremains inside the bear and not said anything. Tip: if you want to put ashes in a Build-A-Bear, get a little urn and put some ashes into that, and put that in the bear. Loose ash equals bad. I worked there for almost 5 years back in the early 2000s. Once there was a woman who came in with her son's monkey and asked for a hole to be stitched up. This was common and we all knew how to do a basic ladder stitch, so my manager agreed to do it. When she took it in the back, she noticed that there were holes only in the crotch of the monkey and that the fur was matted. That's when she realized that this woman's son was, probably, masturbating into the doll. I don't remember if my manager put on gloves and stitched it or offered the woman a new doll, but that was by far the craziest request. I also once had to get into that bear costume after someone wore it for 2+ hours because a woman complained that her son wanted to meet the bear and we had packed up 10 minutes early. That sucked really bad. Back in the earlier Build-A-Bear days, I was asked to put an urn that contained the ashes of their father who had recently passed from cancer into the bear. I didn't know what to say and my manager was on break. They were really sweet and I completed the task for them, read Teddy, if I recall correctly. They also had previously recorded his voice, so that also went into the Teddy. 20 minutes later when my manager returned, I informed her of what happened and how I handled it, and within the next few months we had a store policy of no deceased remains. Looking back on it, I'm happy I could do that for them. They even dressed it like him, and had planned to have it on the mantle for the family and grandchildren to press the hand and hear him. Watching a teenage girl make a bear dressed like her boyfriend, for her boyfriend, while he was there. I have never seen someone try so hard to look interested, but failing. Teenage love, I guess. The weirdest thing is all the middle-aged women who come in every time somehow new is released. They collect them, but are always super weird people. I was not an employee but I interviewed. It was a group interview and they asked us all questions. Toward the end they asked us individually if we wanted to sing a song but stressed we didn't have to. Only employees who sang moved on in the interview process. Wasn't an employee, but I was there for this story. So I was there getting a Build-A-Bear for my friend for their birthday. I was going to make it full of inside jokes and a few light inappropriate jokes. In front of me was a guy with a bear that looked like he actually put some thought into it. I was standing behind him when he did his recording. He was nice and cool, then he grabbed the mic. I thought he was going to say something nice because he told the guy working there that it was for his GF. Here's how this guy started his recording. "Hey there you fat bitch. I know you're fucking with Roberto, you fucking skank. You fucking cow." Keep in mind, he's screaming this in a store full of young children. The employee didn't stop him because I assume he was too scared that he would probably rip his throat out if he intervened. Parents scrambling to cover their kids' ears. The guy did this for I think a minute, but it felt like an eternity. After getting his voice box sewn into the bear, he practically skipped out of the store happy as a clam. I know why he did it. I'm sure he planned out a nice date with her and then he would give her the bear and crush her world. But this guy was yelling at the top of his lungs. When I made a dirty joke, I was at least quiet so the kids behind me didn't hear. Everyone wanted to kill him, but they were also too scared to stop him. Not really weird, but everyone was speechless in that Build-A-Bear. I worked at Build-A-Bear for 8 years. It honestly was a pretty great job. The weirdest request I ever had was a woman brought in a moose, not our brand. It was a gift from her boyfriend and her children had ripped the head clean off. She wanted to know if we could fix it. I was one of the better ones at the sewing, so the manager brought it to me. I told the woman I would do my best. I was able to get the head back on. Returned it to the woman and she said it looked as good as new. One day we had a kindergarten teacher drag in this huge ear stuffed animal that the kids love. It had gone flat over the ears and smelled and looked just gross. We actually opened it up and refilled it. The smell as the air and stuffing went into it was awful. Sewed it back up and sent her on her way. We had multiple people come in to put pacifiers in the bear to break their little one of the habit. One particular mom did that. Then came back 3 days later and had us open it up and remove it. The saddest was the woman who put a mini urn of her parents' ashes inside. Anyway, those are the ones that stick out to me. My girlfriend and her grad school friends made a bear called Catastrophe Bear and he said everything is awful. Not an employee, but at the one in the mall near me the employees told me that a lady would come in with her pet monkey that she treated as her child. She used it as a clothing story for the monkey. She also tried to sue the local school district into letting the monkey attend but was unsuccessful. Being asked to repair a smofet because she was getting a little loose. I worked there in high school about 10 years ago now. I guess the weirdest thing, but was very common, was putting dead relatives' recorded voices into stuffed animals. One was for a little girl whose father had died in Iraq. I was definitely crying while I sewed that bear up. Other than that, there were a few bronies that came in for Rainbow Dash. They were always very awkward but nice. I've worked for the company for almost 4 years. Overall, the days follow the same routine of families come in with a budget and kids have fits when they want something outside of that budget. But I have certainly encountered some weirdos and just weird situations. Weirdest: Mom wanted me to put a sack of her late daughter's baby teeth inside the bear with the recording of her voice. I feel like there's a lot of other sentimental items that could be kept with the bear other than teeth, but I guess everyone grieves in different ways. Crappy. Parents will actually stuff things like the sounds in the bear before bringing them to the machine in hopes of pulling one over on you, like I'm not going to notice the hard plastic sound in your otherwise empty bear eye roll. Heartbreaking, at first, but it gets better. Parent booked a birthday party and requested me as the leader. Pretty typical. I have usual costumers that come in and we have a bond at this point. I knew the costumer and I was excited because I knew they've been going through the ringer with their middle kid in and out of the hospital, so I was really happy that I'd be able to be part of a happy celebration with them. Well, mom came in to talk to me early and it turns out middle kids has cancer and prognosis is not great, so the party is so her siblings and cousins can all come and each make her a bear to have in the hospital with her. Begin the waterworks here. So of course I made the party as special as I could, and during the wish ceremony some of the kids said their wishes out loud and it was all wishes for the kid to get better. I was in tears by the end of the party and had to leave as soon as it was over because I was a mess. Last update I got from the family though, she's doing better and in remission. One I had to encourage against. Man came in wanting a bear for his girlfriend for this last Valentine's Day. He wanted to put an engagement ring inside of the bear and give it to her, and then after a few months rip it open in front of her to propose. Ultimately he agreed it was not a great idea and he'd just stick with a cute bear and find a different way to propose. They came in last month making a flower girl bear for their flower girl to be. It's an interesting job and totally not for everyone, but I honestly love it. Not my forever job, but it's been great while going to undergrad and grad school. Some days I leave full of bubbly laughter and over days I leave in tears. Keeps things interesting. Edit. Okay, wow. Never ever thought I'd get silver for something, let alone for taking about Build a Bear. Seriously, thank you for all the kindness, y'all. If you guys are ever at a BABW, don't be shy. You can always ask your bear builder about their crazy stories and they'll probably tell you and laugh the whole time. Edit 2. After a suggestion I added to the beginning of the birthday party story to not make it feel so roller coaster of emotions. I had parents come in and ask me to put their young daughter pacifiers into the bear. They insisted she agreed as a way to stop using them. The little girl looked horrified the entire time. We stuffed them in the bear. She definitely was not ready to let them go. My mom and I are both adults and we both like stuffed animals. My mom wanted a lion from Build a Bear a long time ago and the employee wouldn't let her finish making her look until she made a wish on the heart. The strangest request she probably ever got was, "Stop telling me to make a wish." Edit. For those who are wondering, the woman would not let her continue without doing the heart ceremony and my mother told her she reserved the right to make a wish later, so we were no longer being held captive by a woman with an unsown lion. Frankly, if it were me I would have complained to corporate that being condescending to adults lost them future business. It's a shame because they do many animals where part of the proceeds go to the WWF, including my mom's lion and a wolf I got later from the person I was dating at the time. Sometimes you just want to get a stuffed animal and support the wild, you know? I have been censored in my bear's name twice at a Build-A-Bear. One happened when I was 5, one when I was 6. When I was 5 I got a bear who I wanted to name Honey Punch. Shut up, I was 5. The attendant told me no, punch is a bad word, so she forced me to change it to bunch. The same thing happened with the second best next year, albeit different first half of the name. Not Build a Bear but an independent store in a mall that did the same thing. A woman brought her young daughter in to celebrate the little girl's first communication with the spirit. She's become a CER like me. I never had any weird guest experiences, just weird experiences with the management. I was ultimately fired because I refused to stand outside the store and dance. We were on the lower level of the mall and the manager told me to try to make eye contact with children on the second level and, in so many words, get them to throw a tantrum so the parent would bring them in. I'd been a good employee and the job was otherwise very fun, but I was glad to go. That manager lived and breathed that job and made the whole store very uncomfortable. I worked at BABW for 7 years and I don't know that any requests were super weird. We put recordings of deceased relatives, recordings of fetal heartbeats, pacifiers, and squeakers from dog toys in animals. Okay, that one might be a bit strange, but the rest were usually very sweet and touching moments, and sometimes exciting for the kiddo who was graduating from their pacifier. I did get called a lot of names when the holidays rolled around and we were out of the holiday animals, no longer an issue since Maxine retired and everything was produced in ridiculous quantities, instead of limited ones. I was often asked to produce products we didn't have in stock, but that's retail. I think the weirdest experiences were helping kids dress their animals. Some folks have interesting choices in outfits. I remember one little bear left our store in a tank top, undies, and heels, with bows on the ears. Of course, the owner of said bear was a 6-year-old girl, but she stayed within her budget. I actually loved and working there, and if I had any free time or ever needed extra money, I'd probably go back. Edit. 2 words. I have a few good ones. Weirdest was this mother and daughter. Daughter was probably in her mid-20s, who specifically came in looking for a little hat. I showed them the hats and they bought the cowboy hat. I tried to make typical conversation at the counter. Usually you ask if it's a gift, but I asked if it was for a special bear they already had. The pair looked at each other and then proceeded to explain the cowboy hat was not for a bear, but for a penis puppet. They are a mother and daughter comedy duo who have genitalia puppet/adult comedy shows. The penis was in need of a hat. Not an employee, but a few years ago I went with my little sister to get some horse thing done and we were waiting in line to do the hard thing where you have to kiss it and promise to love the thing forever. The girl in front of us asked the lady doing the hearts if her bear was gay because it was rainbow. The employee looked a bit taken aback but recovered and told her the bear could be gay if she wanted. And in the most lethal voice I have ever heard out of a small child she said, "If you give him a gay heart I'll rip it out myself and feed it to the wolves." Haunts me to this day. I interviewed for them last year. My hair was a very light blonde but I had dark roots so it was easy to tell it wasn't my natural color, although it was a very natural color. My interviewer asked me if I could dye it black because it was unnatural and parents would throw a fit. I told it wouldn't be possible because it took me months to get that blonde. She then proceeded to write the number 1 on a piece of paper. This is what I have graded your interview on a scale of 1 to 5. I didn't say anything and just walked out. All because I didn't want to dye my hair black. Oh, and the hours? 10 hours a week while I went to school. Back when I worked a few years ago, I had a customer come in holding a bag of what looked like at least 10 pacifiers. She spread the pacifiers throughout the inside of the bear, and told her son that they were a big boy now and didn't need the pacifiers anymore, but he'll always be close to them as they are in the bear now. So I guess it wasn't so weird as it was sweet. Asking me to make a hole between the legs so they can stick a dildo there. Not an employee, but one day at Build-A-Bear, my boyfriend found a voice box someone had already recorded that just said Bush did 9/11. Years later, Harold the bear is still with us, the voice of an unknown prophet still ringing out. I worked at Build-A-Bear for a few months when I was at uni and it was great. I didn't find anything super weird as I worked in a new store and wasn't there very long, but I just found the amount of money people would fork out for the latest bear absolutely insane. We had a kid who was a huge brat, pulling things off shelves, crying and shouting when his parents said no. His bear ends up about 70 pounds. Then the next day the mom comes back in saying how her son wants some different boots and skates for his chase bear now and doesn't like the ones they bought. She didn't bring any of the tags in or a receipt though, so I just handed her off to the manager because I didn't want to deal with that. My favorite ones were a couple and their toddler. Their mom was pregnant and they were making a bear for baby to be. Their son was so excited that he got to kiss the heart that went into his future sibling's bear and it was so adorable. Overall, a great place to work, would recommend if you don't hate kids. Oh God, I worked there a lifetime ago, around 2000 or so. I loved that job. One of the weirdest things was when a customer brought a pet's ashes in a little plastic baggie. I was no longer surprised by the ashes thing, but I was really surprised when they asked me to sew the baggie of ashes to the outside of the stuffed cat. I really can't remember if this is 100% true, but I think I passed off that customer to my manager, mostly because I can't sew that well. Another one, my store was in a fairly large mall in suburban New York, and it was a fairly popular stop for some touring events. I remember when Jim Belushi and Dan Aykroyd stopped by, to promote their Sacred Hearts blues band, and my store manager authorized us to make a teddy bear and dress it like a blues brother but only one teddy bear. To share between them, I guess. I was celebrity starstruck when I presented it to them, but looking back on the old Polaroid I have of the moment, the weary, confused looks from both of them will always stick out in my mind. Got one from my wife. A family came in and asked if they could put a dead relative's loose ashes in the bear. My girlfriend and I were probably the weirdest group of the day at our local Build-A-Bear. We went to Build-A-Bear for her birthday and the promotional live-action Lion King bears were on sale, so we decided to get the ugly live-action Pumbaa bear. For those who have not seen him before, he is an absolute unit with lazy eyes and an evil smile. He knows the sins he's committed and he is not remorseful. Anyways, we dressed him in nothing but a cowboy hat and Marvel boxers, then named him Charles Entertainment Cheese. Oh, and his voice box is also the Super Mario theme. I like to imagine that when I die, the only thing that will be there is just his face in an endless void while the Super Mario theme plays ominously in the background for eternity. The employees were super helpful but were obviously a little uncomfortable at how hard we were laughing at the creation of our stupid son. Edit. I forgot to mention that we also went to Claire's and got him a single stud earring, because he was a good boy and ate all his vegetables. I worked for them for 2 years a good few years back. I put sealed ashes of pets inside, voices of dead relatives, my favorite being a girl who wanted her grand's voice in, and we did it using a recording from her phone. Hi name, just ringing to see how you are, love you, you little CT, sewed pieces of comfort blankets in etc. Customer, not employee. Years ago I made a monkey one for my cousin that I put a noise maker in the crotch that would laugh when you squeezed it. Got some really awkward looks from the employee helping me put it together. My grandma was definitely not amused when my cousin opened it in front of the whole family. Hey, don't put in so much stuffing. I want to leave room for my fleshlight. Obligatory, not an employee but a customer. Visited Build-A-Bear for the first time at the age of 24 and was far too excited and also too old for it, I suppose, but as you're about to find out, my level of maturity wasn't that high. The shop assistant, bear builder, told me I could put a voice recording in it. I nearly lost it. Had no idea that was an option. Said all I had to do was say my chosen phrase into this little microphone and the machine stressed you didn't even have to do it loudly because it's a special microphone, so I decided I wanted my bear to say fuck but like how the dog says it in this video. I felt safe because the shop was loud and the children in the line behind me wouldn't hear me say it, right? Right? Well, the machine repeated my recording back to me, loud enough for the kids behind me to hear. I nearly died. My boyfriend at the time, now husband LOL, and his friend nearly died. The children behind me were irreparably scarred, I'm sure. And that's the story of how I have an EV plushie that smells like cupcakes and says fuck. I worked at Build-A-Bear for about 2-ish years. I just recently quit this past April. My does time fucking fly. People put a lot of things in their stuffed animals, voices of deceased relatives was a popular one. I don't think that's weird though, we all grieve in our own ways, and hey, if a bear with Uncle Ted's voice in it comforts you, whatever. The people who really weirded me out were the people who didn't want anything. Not just no sounds or smells or whatever, I get it that shit's expensive and adds up quickly. I worked there and I couldn't afford a decked out teddy bear. I mean no fabric heart for the heart ceremony, no birth certificate, no box, nothing. All of which are free and encouraged. I want you to remember something, this is Build-A-Bear. You are buying a $30 teddy bear for your kid. You can go literally anywhere else for a stuffed animal for half the price. Build-A-Bear is about the experience of making the bear, customizing it, and taking it home for your kid to have its own custom and personal furry friend. Yes, that is what we have to call them. Why the fuck are you paying $30 for a random stuffed animal? Why are you doing this? What the fuck is wrong with you? At least put a fabric heart in, dude. It's free. It's literally free to put in a cute little heart with a wish for your child. It makes no sense and to this day frustrates me because to me there's no better way to say I don't give a shit about what I'm getting my child for Christmas than that. Also, as a bonus, people who were super weird with gendering their kid's stuffed animal weirded me the fuck out. It's a teddy bear, Kyle. Your daughter can give it a tiara and name it Michael Jackson if she wants. Edit. This is currently my most upvoted comment and it makes me super happy. All of you sharing your Build-A-Bear stories and fuck gender norms get a unicorn brand and stories are wonderful and have made my entire day. Thank you for this sparkling heart.